So welcome to the studio, man. It's always fun. It's always fun when you have a conversation with someone from a different country. It's just because we're inquisitive. We want to know exactly how it works in your country versus how it works in our country. Now, I've traveled the world, but the one place I've never traveled, Simon, is to England. And you and I have some great conversations. We've known each other for, oh goodness, going on almost a decade now. We've been forged through the fire together.
Yes, we have.
But over the past few days since you've been here, it's just I have found just our conversations enlightening. Everything from politics to, oh my goodness, what's the cost of gas here versus what's the cost of gas in England, because we're always comparing. Our workout this morning, you got to do it in 90% humidity, which is, it's always fun when you have a fellow brother in the fight with you. But where I'd like to start, Simon, because we were talking about this before we got in the studio, is with healthcare in England.
Yes.
Because you and I are huge into health is wealth. This is what your business is built on. You're a doctor of chiropractic care. And is that the proper way to say it?
I'd say a doctor of chiropractic, yeah.
So doctor of chiropractic, like in England, you have to say it a certain way, correct?
Yeah, we're not allowed to just say, oh, hi, I'm Dr. Smith. You have to say, I'm Dr. Smith, chiropractor. It's mostly so that there's no possible confusion that we might be a medic, but I wouldn't really want to be confused with a medic anyway. I'm proud of what I do.
And you've been practicing for how long?
31 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so a long time.
31 years. So take, for me, when you practice for 31 years, why did you get into your line of work 31 years ago?
Right. There is a very interesting story about that because I've cared for people for, as you say, for 31 years, and it's my calling. And as such, you'd almost think of it like, a light shining down, this is your path, Simon. But I sort of fell into chiropractic. My journey was, my background is my mother passed away when I was 11. So I was raised by my father.
How did she pass, if you
don't
mind
me asking? She had breast cancer.
Okay.
And that's a story in itself in terms of how people dealt with grief and how they dealt with children with grief in those days. And that's really part of my journey through Kokoro, and that in as much as that my mother left home to go to hospital one day and then never came home. And that was effectively how children were dealt with in terms of grief. That was it. Your mother's not coming home.
So like going back to when you were 11, it was a seed planted at that time of like, hey, I want to care for others, like seeing what your mother
I think
went
so.
through?
There is an element of always being cared, but I was quite a gentle child. I was quite a shy child. And so I was kind of raised by my father. And he then I started working for a bank. When I had no idea I was going to go healthcare, but growing up, I'd always wanted to be a doctor, but I didn't get the grades. And I did some psychometric profiling at the college, high school. And they were like, no, the reason you're not getting good grades is because actually you're really wanting to go into business, and I was like, well, I always wanted to do medicine, but I guess not. So I started working for a bank and I hated every day of it. And I carried on doing that, just turning up every day. And one day I came home and my father had had a stroke. I found him on the floor. And he went into hospital for about a month and didn't survive.
How old were you when you had
I
the
was
stroke?
23.
So you were 23. So from the time you were 11 to 23, you lost your mother, then you lost your father. And the reason why I want to talk about that, and I know those are deep topics to talk about, but with my mother, this is that she's entering her final stages with ovarian cancer. And just this week, when you flew in, I had to go to meet with the family to do end-of-life planning, which is always sobering. And now I'm 41 years young. I'm not an 11-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm not also 23, and I still have both of my parents. How did that impact you?
Well, it impacted me in many ways. It made me independent because I grew up kind of getting myself home from school, sorting the house out, till my father came home from work. I would be independent in that respect. But also not having a mother through that crucial period of puberty and stuff, and how you learn how to do social interactions scarred me for life. And I was paying the price of that in my 50s. I actually went and took some grief counseling and some shadow work when I was 50 to grieve for my mother. Yeah. So I actually...
So you were still grieving in your 50s.
Yeah.
For something that happened to you when you were 11.
My entire behavioral map was laid out by that, because I wasn't taught certain lessons. I wasn't, exposed to, societal cultural norms. I was raised by a dad who was a generation older, sort of, he was from the 1940s and, served in World War II. And he wasn't equipped to raise a child, really. He was the guy, he was the breadwinner, stay-at-home mum generation, and he did his best, and he did a good job. He taught me to be independent. He taught me how to cook and everything, all that kind of stuff, how to iron, all of those elements. But I was a very shy child, a very shy adult, didn't interact very much. But as I say, just going back, I found him on the floor. He spent a month in hospital before passing away. And I had a week's compassionate leave, and I came back to find a note through my door. And it was a family friend. And she was a physiotherapist. And she said, look, the note said, I'm really sorry I missed the funeral. Come round to my house, we'll look after you. So she took me in. And I spent about 3 or 4 days there, just, in a daze, I guess you could say, because all of a sudden I'm 23 years old. I'm an orphan, technically. I've got a house that I need to grow up and run. What am I going to do? And I hate what I'm doing. And he had the stroke in June, died in July. End of July, I see this, woman at the beginning of August, and she says, you should become a chiropractor. And bear in mind, this is in the days before the internet, before YouTube. And I was like, what's a chiropractor? I'd never heard the word. So beginning of August, I'd never heard the word chiropractor. By the middle
What year was this?
This is 1990. By, beginning of August, I'd never heard the word chiropractic. By the middle of September, I'm sat in the front row of the chiropractic college, wondering what the hell I'm about to do for the next 4 years. And I sat there, and I can honestly say I loved every single day of that college, and ever since. It was just as if something had pushed me in the right direction. Kind of getting a bit emotional, actually, because it's brilliant.
Welcome to the studio.
Yeah. So I refer to her as an angel that came into my life at the right moment. And
what was her name? Or what is her name, I should ask. Do you remember?
Yeah, it was Joan.
Joan, okay.
Yeah. And interestingly, the bizarre twist of fate is that I, moved away. I became a chiropractor. I moved away, and
where were you living at the time?
This was in Somerset. This is down in
South, for those that our audience,
south of England, southern England, in kind of the rural farming West Country, rather than, if you imagine that London and the home counties are in the east. The Somerset is in the West Country. So if you kind of imagine a picture of England looking like the lower limb, so you've got Scotland is the calf muscle, Yorkshire, where I live now, is kind of like the upper ankle area, and then London and the home counties would be kind of like a fat heel, and then the instep is the south coast leading to a toe, which is Devon and Cornwall. So if you imagine I'm kind of on the bottom instep of that shoe, and I now live kind of in the north, which is kind of about halfway up this picture.
And so, just out of my own curiosity, as growing up, did you travel much of England, or was it just you were really just within your community?
Yeah, well, my father was from, bizarrely, because where I've settled in Yorkshire now is quite random, because one of my roommates was from Yorkshire, so that's kind of who I've set up a business with. But he was from Yorkshire, but settled in Somerset with my mother. And so that's where I grew up. So we traveled around. And actually, I did have a childhood of quite a bit of traveling. I mean, I grew up in Jamaica for 4 years.
Yeah, you told me that in the car because we were talking. You're like, did you know that I grew up in Jamaica? I was like, no, I had no clue. Because we were talking about the heat here in Central Arkansas compared
to England.
Right?
But yeah, so when I was 5, I moved to Jamaica for 4 years. And I didn't come back to Somerset until I was nearly 10.
Why did y'all move to Jamaica, by the way?
My dad was an engineer. So he got a job. He was an old school engineer from the 1920s.
Like what kind of engineer?
Mechanical engineer. Okay. So, the kind that would work on lathes in engineering, building airplanes, building power station type components. And then he worked his way up through to senior management. So he ended up as a managing director of a foundry that made the rollers that crushed the sugarcane. So when I'm 7 in 1974, 5, and 6, I was coming to the States for long weekends. So and then this will make you laugh. I was in Disney World on the 4th of July, 1976 for the bicentennial. So I celebrated your bicentennial in Disney World, which we got a lot.
So you were in Orlando when
we got a lot of stick. When they heard our accent, we got a lot of stick from there.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
Yeah, we got a lot of "we kicked your butt then, didn't we?" comments. So I traveled through Miami quite a bit with Dad's work in the 70s, and then moved back to Somerset when that job ended, and then did my growing up in Somerset.
I gotcha. Yeah. And so Joan, she slips this note underneath your door. Mm-hmm. And how close were you to Joan at that time?
Not totally close. It was kind of that person we'd hang out with. We'd sort of meet up occasionally.
She is an angel.
Yeah, and she'd fixed my back once. In fact,
so she was in chiropractic care.
She was just a plain physiotherapist, not plain physiotherapist.
What is a physiotherapist?
Physiotherapist is someone who's trained to work within the NHS. Basically,
and the NHS is
within
what?
The National Health Service.
And we're going to get to that.
Yeah, so we'll go into that in detail. But basically, non-manipulative therapy, basically. So massage, infrared, ultrasound, electrotherapy is the kind of standard.
Was that not cutting edge back then?
It was. And
how was chiropractic viewed back then? Were you like...
Basically like a witch doctor.
I was about to say.
It was that kind of thing that, you take...
Where did that narrative start? Do you know?
Basically because we weren't we weren't under the governmental umbrella. And basically it was like, okay, there's medicine and we're in charge of everything and everything else is alternative. So reflexology, homeopathy.
Which is great. Yeah. I see a reflexologist.
Yep, absolutely. And chiropractic. We're all those like, well... You can go if you want, but they're not qualified. And it really digs me because even 30 years later, I still have my patients coming back from consultants insulting me by saying, well, if you want to empty your wallet, go and see a chiropractor. If you believe in that kind of thing.
So consultants are in the NHS system? Is that what they're called?
Yeah. So basically you would have like a general practitioner, general medic, an MD, and then anyone who has a specialty. So for example, an orthopedic surgeon, urologist, oncologist, they would be, considered to be a consultant. And you go from being a doctor to being a mister, kind of how it like.
Sure. So but when you, at that time, and I'm curious what the perception is today, when you're going through this specific schooling to become a chiropractor, you were viewed that, man, this guy's a disruptor per se. Right? Like, so therefore, this narrative is built in the minds of the culture that is not true.
And we had the college, I was lucky, the college I went to was one of the best in the world. We were very
What was the college called?
It's called the Anglo-European College of Chiropractic. So
and it's
still in Bournemouth, which is on the south coast, which was only 60 miles from my house. So I kept my house and I would travel back at weekends and things like that. I would commute and things.
Because everybody associates England with London, kind of similar to like everybody associates New York with New York City when there's a whole other part of the state that people have no really idea about.
Yeah.
All right. So, you enter in school, you love every minute of it. Joan, correct? Mm-hmm. She's the one that said, hey, I think you've got an opportunity here. Yeah. And you just took it and ran with it.
She just sort of, because we'd, when you'd gone round and I'd sort of talked and she knew I was dissatisfied with the bank. She knew I was interested in martial arts and anatomy. And I used to do shiatsu on student, in chiropractic, sort of colleagues, sorry, not chiropractic, karate colleagues, so that we were, I was always interested in that kind of stuff. And she said, you should do this. And I basically took her at her word. And again, bear in mind, this is before email. So what I had to do was I had to ring our directory inquiries, get the phone number for the college, ring the college, ask them to post me an application form out. I filled that in. And when I resigned from the bank, I couldn't even give them 30 days notice. I actually could only give them 28 days notice. That's how quick I had to do the turnaround.
When it comes to healthcare in England, you have NHS, it's a national health system.
Yes.
All right. So you went an alternative medicine route.
So
what was the cost of college back then to go through?
It was around about $10,000 a year, which I had to fund. Now I had my father's savings, my inheritance. So I basically,
and it's a 4-year.
It was a 4-year course, and this is what people
like fall, spring semester with the summer break.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
So effectively, you'd have standard length. So we say standard physiotherapy education in England is 3 years. It's a 3-year degree course at a university. Well, we were 4 years, And they're generally like, where you have a few hours lessons a day, and then you might have a day off and things like this. But the chiropractic college, we were there from 8 till 5, 5 days a week. We had we were basically said,
so it was rigorous.
Yeah. You need to be doing
extremely rigorous
25 hours of contact time, and you need to be doing at least.
How many were enrolled? So, like in a freshman class.
Class, we were the biggest class at the time, and we were 110. We were about 95 when we graduated. A few people didn't hack it, didn't want it after that, didn't want it badly enough. But yeah, so we were the first class to be awarded a degree. They'd had to go through the degree awarding status at that point.
The reason why I asked that the line of questioning is because, again, we're comparing notes. This is how England works. This is how the United States of America work. The NHS route, like how does one take the NHS route? Or is it something that's government driven, like through schooling?
So, I mean, and this is an interesting one. We've had a discussion about this because there's a strong antipathy to social medicine. It appears in America. The general cultural thing is like this.
There is. Yes, there is. Yeah. That's why I'm asking this question of socialized medicine or universal healthcare. Because in America, we talked about this at length. We talked about it in the car in regards to the education system. It's very industrialized. And it's still, I would say, rooted in the late 1800s when Rockefeller started the process or has his hand in it. Same thing with the healthcare side of the house. It's very industrialized in our world. It's a two-way street. I had this conversation with a great guest earlier this week, Spencer Smith. He's like, I would argue that the healthcare system in our world is not broken. It's actually operating how it's been designed for a long time. So you see a lot of, disruption that is happening because the cost of insurance on the private side continues to go up. The cost of care continues to go up. But honestly, when you look at it, it's operating how it was designed years and years and years ago. Yeah. So you hear this huge narrative in America right now. It's like Medicare for all, which Medicare is. It's when you turn 65, it's the government-based program. And there's a privatization piece to it as well. I won't go into links to it. And then you hear, oh, no, we don't want to go the socialized route, right? And that's why I'm asking if you go to the national health system, which the other question that I have too is like, how well compensated are the physicians in England?
Okay, so
I know that's a lot. So
no. Well, let's pick that apart. So the National Health Service came up from the ashes of World War II.
Okay, so it was after World War II. The National Health Service.
So basically,
was established.
I think there was there'd been a conservative government that had taken us through World War II, Winston Churchill. And I think the backlash then was that, right, actually, you were really good at that, but we need a change. And so the Labour, the slightly left of centre, I would say left of centre, not raging left, but left of centre sort of government took over. And they were like, right, we need to look after our people. So the National Health Service was founded, and on the principle that everybody should get care. And at that point in time, it worked really well and has worked really well for decades.
Why did it work really well then?
Because effectively, people used it for the right reasons. When I'm calling, I'll go and I will see a general practitioner, or he will make a house call, and that is it. But as you and I have had this discussion, the health of society is changing. And also the self-responsibility, the accountability of individual people. So we're finding that people have had decades of poor eating. So you're getting diabetes, you're getting obesity, bariatric.
Even in England?
Oh, yeah.
We talked about like
the access to sodas.
Let me ask you this. So like when you landed in Atlanta, and what was your first, and you've been here plenty of times, but what is your perspective of Americans when it comes to their health?
If I'm honest, not great.
I want honesty. Yeah, that's what we're here to do.
Well, like I sort of said, the shock I had when I was in Atlanta and I was, walking, because again, I went between concourses by walking. I didn't take the train because that's what I do. And I walked past a row of about 35 people in wheelchairs waiting to be pushed on, just waiting, queued up. And there were just people everywhere.
Pause real quick. Alex, if you can do us a favor, I would like to compare the obesity rates in England versus the obesity rates in the U.S., right? And so going back to the NHS, it's established after World War II. And I think this is I find this to be fascinating, right? Because our worlds work differently. I think that we're looking to accomplish a similar mission, but you said that over time it somewhat has deteriorated. So for folks that don't understand how national health system works, and I didn't fully, when I went to Switzerland a few years ago, I was on a tour and I was asking our tour guide, like, how does your national health system work? And she was explaining it to me. I said, does it work though?
Yeah.
And
so it does work. Ours does work pretty well. It's slow and clunky now. We're overwhelmed.
slow and clunky.
Because effectively we're being overwhelmed by lifestyle-related diseases. But the nice thing about the NHS is that we're world leading in terms of looking after those serious genetic type problems, for example, children's cancers, that kind of stuff, where, you don't have to choose between eating and medication, for example. There are caps on medication. So this pharmaceutical industry hasn't managed to ramp up prices. I mean, they are, but the NHS absorbs it. So, for example, if you have diabetes in England, you're just going to get your insulin. You're not going to have to pay for it ever.
Hold on 1 second, Sam. What did you find, Alex?
26 to 28% in England. It's 2022 to 2023, and in 2021 to 2023, United States is 40.3%.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so we are 12 to 15% greater than England when it comes to the obesity rate.
Yeah, but we're heading
and
there.
it continues to go up.
Yeah, we've passed legislation now about sugar in drinks for children and things like this. We've passed that legislation. But I mean,
but why did you not go the NHS route?
Because effectively, I think at that time it was like, right, do this. And I went, yes, I'll do it. And, I didn't even consider whether it would be the NHS or not. But the nice thing about, I feel that I have the freedom to practice honestly.
What do you mean by that?
Well, there's no government agenda. There's no.
So the NHS has a government agenda. What do you? So like,
yeah, to a certain thing, because it's all funded. So they said, right, we will put money into cancer research, but we won't put money into this, for example.
Are taxes high to fund the NHS? Now, granted, what's England's population in total?
We're probably at about 78 million now.
Okay, so I mean,
yeah, but it's a small island. I mean, I've told you before that you stand anywhere in England and you're never more than 75 miles from the coast.
There we go. Yeah. But like, so the government agenda on the NHS, I mean, they're dictating how the doctors practice, right?
Yeah.
In a large way?
Well, it's that usual thing of getting a top-heavy management system. So the boots on the ground, the doctors are very much overstressed, the usual thing of, long intern hours, etc. And then you have a series of management structures in these national health trusts. So, for example, a town would have a sub set of the NHS, a national health trust, to organise and oversee the hospitals, the GPs, etc. So the management systems become very top heavy, and again, as you have lots of studies, questionnaires, all of that kind of stuff of how efficiency drives instead of basically cutting managers and adding more GPs. So recently,
GPs, general practitioners.
So we actually have had a system of doctor strikes. Doctors have gone on strike lately for better pay because you have,
like what is an average? I don't know. What does a GP typically make in England?
I'm not actually sure. I mean, it's probably around about $100,000 for a fully qualified general practitioner, maybe a little bit more. So not a huge.
And they're a government employee.
They're a government employee, effectively. Yeah. So yes, kind of. I mean,
Alex, would you mind checking like what a general practitioner in England makes versus what a general practitioner in America makes?
I'd be curious because, but again, I'm not 100% certain on that. But effectively, you have a lot of hospital-based junior doctors. So, as you're going through your interns and your residents and that kind of stuff. And they're doing long hours for little pay, and you're almost at that point where they're sort of saying, well, look, our rate of pay is good, but because it's kind of like you get, say, $30,000 a year for what you do, but you are then making us do overtime and our actual rate of pay is quite low. And you're looking at it and going, well...
They're crunching the numbers versus the hours worked.
Yeah, and you're saying, well, that guy at McDonald's isn't earning a great deal less than this
So
guy.
what makes someone want to go the NHS route? Like outside of like, hey,
I think,
I care for people and this is a part of my why.
I think because they want to be a doctor and care for health. So there is a passion there. And when you get to that point when people exploit another person's passion, I think it's that sort of thing that you'll sort of say, look,
exactly what you're talking about.
You love to do this. This is your calling. So you'll accept that you're not going to get paid for it.
It's almost as if a nonprofit runs the volunteers into the ground.
And when I say doctors, we're including nurses, occupational health workers, and things like this, you see. So
we're making a blanket statement here.
So, nurses work their hearts out and, they then just basically, don't get the same recompense. And it's a tough call. Change is coming. It is happening slowly.
What does change look like?
This idea that these, quangos of bureaucrats and stuff they're now realize, because effectively the doctor's going, we are not taking this anymore. So it is changing. There is a bit of a sea change there of actually
you're seeing change in our country in different ways. Alex, what'd you find?
So the low mid-salary GP in England, it starts at £68,000. The typical average is around 76 to 104.
You're on the money. So 76 to 104 in pounds.
In pounds, which is about
what are we doing in America?
36K, 138.
So that's more.
Typical average is 202 to 260.
So
well, wait.
So 202 to 260. Now I would say on that note, the government programs, Simon, you say NHS, we're going to say Medicaid, Medicare, right? Like those.
Yeah.
And then the privatization of insurance for us, which is typically delivered through employers.
Yeah.
Right. So you're starting to see there to be a tug of war because it's been that two-way system. It's been very industrialized, meaning like you as a GP or any other practicing physician, the pay is driven off of the health insurance side of the house.
So our system,
is there private health insurance you can purchase?
So there's quite a lot of health insurance companies, things like Bupa, AXA, PPP, all of these guys, big companies. So you can buy that as an individual. You can have it as company cover. There's quite a few different company schemes that companies will purchase. And we also have a low level of what we call a cash system where you would just pay in.
Yeah.
And
you're starting to see an emergence of that more.
You're allowed to claim
here.
So they might sort of say, okay, during the course of a year, you're allowed to claim $500 for optical, $350 for chiropractic.
Gotcha.
There'll be limits and things like that, but you're paying in on a cash basis.
But like when I picture NHS, or I think anybody else does, is like in America we don't fully understand. Meaning like, well, if I have NHS and NHS only, the National Health System.
Well, let me run through a scenario for you.
Yeah, go for it. I would love it.
So you've got two people, one with health insurance, one without. So the person without health insurance has, I'll use me as an example. I don't have health insurance because I am my own health insurance. I have looked after my health. I don't, why
you're an oddity,
I've taken responsibility.
Yeah.
However, from years of chiropractic and a couple of injuries and some weight training injuries, I have an elbow injury that is becoming arthritic after 31 years of practice. And because I know I'm going to need surgery, I've put it off until I'm kind of approaching retirement. So I don't have health insurance. So I have made an appointment with a general practitioner and I've sort of said, look, I have this. And then the pathway would be, right, okay, well, we need to get a look at it. So they would refer me for an MRI, some x-rays, and then they would refer me through the physical therapy or musculoskeletal pathway. And that would be, right, okay, we are triaging you and how serious are you? Do you have tennis elbow? Oh, well, there's a physiotherapy. Oh, do you need surgery? Here's access to an orthopedic surgeon. And then what happens is that goes into the system. I am then contacted and I would then make an arrangement to be seen. Now, various modalities. So for example, if it was a renal problem or gynecological problem, some of those waiting lists are months. And this is where the NHS can fall down. That actually you're in the system, but they're so overwhelmed because they're swamped with lifestyle-related dysfunctions. And this is where I'm saying it's creaking. So for example, this Friday of last week, I went to the general practitioner, said I'd like this referral. By Monday, I'm getting a voicemail from the clinic saying, could you please call us? We need to get an appointment. Obviously, I'm in America, so I haven't called them. So I get a second message going, we've referred you through to the orthopedic department. Can you please contact the orthopedic department for a referral? So that's gone quite quickly.
So in the NHS ecosystem, there are specialists. So like there's like cardiologists, orthopedists.
It is basically, the NHS is a full spectrum. It is the entirety of medicine. That is,
it's the full spectrum of medicine.
Full spectrum
so like
of medicine.
if someone's diagnosed with cancer, they have their oncologist, right?
It is basically the medical system. There is no separate medical system. I'm going to be careful what I say here because
I'm not trying to put you in a corner.
No. What I'm saying is that basically because there are some exceptions. But effectively, if you are going down a conventional medical route, you will have your medical student, your house officer, your resident, your consultant, you'll have your surgeons, you'll have everybody basically, and they will all be employed by the NHS. However, what surgeons, consultants will also do is they will have a private list of patients. So I say, okay, I've got this. And I go through to the orthopedic surgeon and they go, yes, you do need surgery. My surgery on the National Health Service is booked up until 2027. So I can operate on you then. However, I have space on my private book and I could see you next week. So they keep slots for the private. And it will be $10,000. And I go, all right, okay. So I have the choice.
You follow the NHS path.
And I can have it for free. And I'll never have to pay. All I have to do is wait, and it'll happen. And I will get the same surgeon. So I will get that.
And I think that's what Americans' biggest fear is of socialized medicine.
I get the same surgeon. I just have the choice. Do I want to pay for it? And this is where private healthcare comes in, because then you can say, I would like private access to this person so I can get.
Is it more like concierge care? Is it better care? Or is it in the same facility?
No, it's in the same facility. And in fact, sometimes, because we have a patient's charter where I have the right to choose where I get my care. I can go and say, right, there's a local hospital near me called the Spire Hospital. It's kind of got a spire on it, and it's called the Spire Hospital. And that is a very exclusive, private,
very nice,
very nice. But it has those doctors that work there, those surgeons that work there also have an NHS list. So you go and see this guy and he says, I can operate on you there. So you'll get the best bet and it still won't cost you anything. It'll just cost you time. Or you can say, right, I will pay you £10,000. Can you operate on me on Monday? And he'll say, yes, I can. And that's how it works. So the National Health Service does work, but it's very overwhelmed. And you asked about taxation on this one. It's a very small part of our tax burden. It's very well organized, actually, that our taxes...
What do your taxes look like? Meaning, I don't want to know your income, but if you're is it a flat tax? Is it a scaled? I don't know anything about England's tax system.
Should we say...
That's what fascinates me about other people from other countries.
So our sales tax, for example, is 17.5%. In fact, it might be 20% now, a 20% tax rate on goods and services.
So if you buy a vehicle, you're going to pay 20%?
Yeah, but it's so it's in that. But that's
or 17 to 20%?
Yeah, but it won't vary at all. Yeah. So that's the thing. And that's value added tax. It's called VAT. Income tax varies from say 20%. So you're allowed, and I'm guessing it's the same here, that you are allowed a certain base of tax-free income. So low income threshold, you can earn.
Now there's a scale.
Yeah. So up to £10,000 is tax-free. So you can earn that, you pay no tax. After that, just under, it's like 7,600. 7,600, you pay no tax. After that, you'll pay national insurance tax. And this is the
NHS tax.
So what happens is you are my receptionist, so I am your boss. So I pay you some money every month for your wages. I also pay half of your national insurance contribution.
Okay.
And that's
a part of the package. That's part of it is. A benefit that I'm providing you as your employer.
So my employment wage bill is bigger than you get, and then you pay the other half. So that comes off your salary.
Okay.
So for example,
are there instances where an employer for their employees, associates, or whatever they're referred to, pay for the private insurance?
Yeah. So that's a lot of companies would do that.
To recruit? To retain?
Private healthcare is, tends to be that way. So, but if most people on their wages will contribute regardless. So you'll get paid. So it's not voluntary. It's mandatory to pay your national insurance.
Sure.
Yeah. You will pay national.
We have mandatory taxes too.
So effectively, but as a self-employed practitioner, it is my responsibility to make contributions. So I have to if I want to get, so there's national insurance and pension. So there is a national pension retirement.
Kind of like our Social Security?
Social Security, yeah. So
Do
those are the
you
details.
all view that as somewhat of a, how am I going to put this? Do you view this as like the pension to be
It's not great. It's not great.
like a Ponzi scheme almost?
Yeah, because the generation...
That's how I'll put it.
Yeah.
That's when I look at it, to be totally candid.
The current generation is putting money in
that they're never going to see.
That they're never going to see. And this is
What never made sense, doesn't make sense to me, is that's a tax, in my opinion. And then here they tax it, like when you start receiving it.
Yeah, honestly,
so like I guess where I'm going with this from a tax perspective, you've got the NHS, the national insurance. You all do offer a privatization version, kind of similar to what we do, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Which to me, it sounds as if you're purchasing like a more concierge service that gives you more speed of care.
Speed of care, things like that. You can...
It jumps you in the front of the line.
Effectively, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you get the fast pass.
You won't get better care, but for example...
It's the same level of care.
Yeah.
It's just you get the fast pass.
Yeah, yeah. So you have a slipped disc in your low back. You go to the doctor. Well, right, I'm not allowed to refer you for imaging, so I have to refer you to the MSK clinic. That'll take you 3 months. Okay, they're going to look at you and go, okay, well, we need to just have a look at you. Okay, right, that's another month. Okay, now we should scan you. So you've had a problem for months, whereas you come to me and I'll go, you've got a slipped disc. We need to see how big
We're
this
going to move
is.
you up in line.
I'm going to refer you.
So there's not hey, I'm going to send, like you and I have this similar diagnosis and prognosis, right? And I'm on NHS and you have a private plan on top of NHS.
Yeah.
They're not sending me to this room that is far inferior to a room and or care that's far inferior to care you're going to receive, right?
You're going to get the same care.
It's just that,
yeah.
Cole, we've got to push you out for 12 months. Simon, we can get you in 2 weeks.
It's not
is
like...
that it?
Yeah, so if we...
But they're still going to get the NHS.
Yeah.
Or are they getting paid by NHS on top of the private insurance?
No,
they're not.
No,
okay,
that's just pure billing on that one. Yeah, pure billing. Yeah, because effectively that's it. You would almost sort of say, right, okay, you are the site where the doctor is working is a company, and you pay that company, and that doctor is an employee of that company.
The overall, and I know you're not going to. This isn't you speaking as the ambassador for England, but what is the overall temperature in England when it comes to the level at which y'all are taxed?
We're generally happy with it. That's the most thing. But again, it's that aspect of we feel like we're not taxing the rich. We feel that I think there's a general groundswell that actually there's some
like the top end
the gap
is not paying their fair share.
Yeah, it seems
there's a disparity of income,
and I think also this comes down to the culture of the country, how we're raised. We talked about this, about it starts in the schools. But if you remember with your Carnegies and your Rothschilds, they built libraries. They gave their money away. They made money on the railroads, timber, all of those oil, all of those kinds of things. But at the same time, there was a standard of altruism. It's like there was a gratitude for, I've made money, but I'm giving back to that. But nowadays, that seems to be like, I've got the money, so I actually need a second yacht, and I've got to have a different color car now because I've had this one for a while. There's an element of selfishness there, and I think in anything there's service and giving back. Gotcha. We should be of service to people. Gotcha. And so there is that culture, but the taxation generally for the average person is acceptable, because we have like a 20% level on income, and then then there's a 40%, and then I think there's another level which I'm fortunate, or not unfortunate, never to have hit, but we feel there should be another level of super taxation.
Alex, another thing I want you to research, and again, this might be a little bit more challenging. So obesity rates were 14 to 16%, 15% higher than England. You saw it in Atlanta, and then I'd like for you also to research England's tax versus our tax, if you don't mind, because I'm curious about it. Granted, we've got a lot more people than you all, but the reason why I'm asking these questions, Simon, is because it's very interesting to me the path you took in chiropractic care,
Mm.
right? Like you made a decision early on, like this is my path. I'm going to take this path. Joan definitely saw something, right? You called her an angel at the beginning of the show, and you go through 4 years of study, and you were at that time. My hope is that the perception is a lot different today, which we'll get into. You know, it's like you don't need to go see a chiropractor, or it's kind of witch doctor, voodoo care in a lot of ways.
It was,
and so you came out. Did you go work for somebody else, or did you immediately start your own business in chiropractic care?
Well, that was the nice thing. You know, I started a degree in chiropractic, so I studied the thing I am going to do, and I feel blessed in that. You know, it wasn't that I studied a degree in art history and then suddenly had to find a career.
Yeah.
And we were guaranteed 100% employment because the nature of the education was you do a 4-year degree, but you do a 1-year internship afterwards. So it's 5-year education. This is, we sort of moved away from the topic slightly, but this is what jibes at me a little bit is when the doctors go, well, we should send you to a physiotherapist. I'm not really happy sending you to a chiropractor. And I'm going, but
the difference again,
the difference is that a physiotherapist has 3 years education and a chiropractor has 5 years education.
And y'all are practicing the same.
We're practicing more or less, but we practice more. We're taught to manipulate. So my course studies included how to become a radiographer. So I take my own x-rays. I'm a radiologist to a certain level of education because
So you know how to read x-rays?
So I read x-rays. So I'm trained to do things that so I would spend, as well as learning how to manipulate, learning how to palpate.
When you say manipulate, you mean?
The joint cracks and those kind of stuff. But I would spend 6 to 8 hours a week looking at x-rays every week for 4 years. Radiology was a massive part of our course. So, and I'm legally liable. You know, you have, say, for example, you have a slip disc in your low back. I take a picture of your low back, and just in the top right corner, way away, but in your lungs, there's a blemish that could be cancer. Well, I'm legally liable for that. I'm meant to spot that. I'm trained to spot cancers, fractures.
And you refer them to someone in NHS?
Then you say, right, I need you to go straight back to the doctors and tell them this.
In that instance, Simon, in that instance, if you do find somebody that there's something questionable within their x-ray and you refer them back to NHS, do they go back into a waiting line, or are they ushered to the front?
They're ushered to the front.
Okay.
So this is where NHS works well, is emergency care.
Okay, so they have a prioritization, right? Like if someone spots cancer or potential cancer, there's not a delay in care.
You'll get bumped straight to the top of the system,
Okay.
However, you have to get past the general practitioner first, and sometimes...
So you always go to a general practitioner first. Is there a shortage of general practitioners in England?
Yes.
There is.
There is. And they're under pressure. So that's why appointment scheduling is really hard. It's like, it's that thing of like, we won't let you book an appointment. You have to phone at 8 a.m. and we have like 10 slots. So if you're not...
Give me just a second. So Alex, you can keep talking.
Yeah. England taxes hit harder in the middle with income tax, national insurance, and a 20% VAT.
Yeah.
They cap at 45%.
45%?
Yeah.
The US pays less through sales tax and no VAT, but top earners pay over 50% once federal, state, and payroll taxes.
Yeah.
What is considered a top earner in America? Does it say?
It doesn't.
Someone over $500,000 or someone over, I'm 250?
Federal income tax for single filers, 37% or 609.
609. Got it. Yeah. So you were saying back to...
So back to sort of...
and sorry, I didn't mean to...
the accreditation. So effectively, so they would, urgent medical care and that kind of stuff is beyond... That is where the NHS is considered to be one of the best in the world.
Okay.
Because effectively...
You said that earlier and I was just curious. It's just because they have the ability to triage and prioritize around what...
So if you have a serious problem, you will get. However, you have to get past the general practitioner. And I'll tell you a story. This kind of was one of those, again, when it blew up while I was on holiday. But I had a patient who had some numbness in the thighs. And I was treating him. And on examination, so when I looked at him, he had quite an arch in his back. When I looked in from behind.
Like the lower lumbar?
Yeah, the lower lumbar spine. He kind of had a little step almost. Like his bottom area kind of had a little shelf. And I wasn't happy about that. So I x-rayed it. And he had one vertebra that had slipped forward slightly off the one below, which made me suspect something because he had the pins and needles. So I took another x-ray and I found a fracture in his spine. Found 2 fractures in his spine. which basically meant that the back part of the bone wasn't holding the front part on, and that's why it was slipping
So
off.
when someone comes to see you, Simon, so you are doing more than just the manipulation part.
But this is
So
not
like
just...
if you see something, you immediately, do you have an x-ray in the room or do you send them off to get x-rays?
At that time we had our own x-rays. I took these x-rays and then I wasn't happy with what I saw on the standard x-rays. So then I took an additional series at a different angle to highlight the fracture, which I suspected was there. And I found the fracture, which is therefore right. You're getting numb. You're getting more numb in your legs. You're finding it difficult to walk, and I'm finding a fracture. So I believe that might be unstable. So I'm going to write you a letter, and I'm going to please take this as a GP because you need an MRI urgently. We need to know if this is a stable or an unstable fracture. And he took it to the general practitioner, and because I'm private medicine, this general practitioner wouldn't touch the letter.
Because it came from you.
Because it came from me.
Wow.
He did not, he would not even take it from the person's hand, basically called me an idiot to the patient and told...
What year was this?
This was about 15 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2010.
Yes, it's probably about 2012 actually when I'm thinking about it. And
so there was still that perception.
That was still that perception. And he just basically called me an idiot and said
20 plus years later.
Yeah. And said that I didn't know what I was talking about. And by the way, I didn't even use proper...
Are they indoctrinated during medical school to think like that?
So. It's changing now. So I now am seeing more GPs that are open to it. But this person basically called me an idiot. And I wouldn't mind that. That's fair enough. But this person had a fracture and was potentially going to be paralyzed. And I'd written it all in a letter, written a full x-ray report in the letter. And the person didn't even read the letter because he judged me to be a quack.
Wow.
And I don't care, but there was a person sat in front that was suffering, and that should have taken priority.
So
he doesn't work nearby me anymore, which was he doesn't work.
Did the patient get better?
The patient got care.
Got care and got better.
Yeah.
Well, that's a positive, right? But like you've been in business for over 30 years, so you've seen a lot change over the 30 years from 1990. Did you get out of school in 94?
95? Yeah, summer 94.
And then you immediately went to go work for somebody, or did you establish your own practice?
I worked for somebody.
So you got to understand the business.
Yeah. And
everything's cash pay, right?
Everything's cash pay. Because even
Did you find that challenging, like in the beginning?
No, not really.
So there was a huge demand?
There was a huge demand.
So the people of England...
Yeah,
you got NHS, but they wanted
care even.
They wanted care. They wanted private care especially an alternative.
Yeah, but it was very much like, I have this chiropractor. You should see him. It was all very much word of mouth referral,
right? But not from the general practitioner.
Oh, never, ever. Even now, very rare. I've got some that are.
You would think that if a general practitioner, and this is just how my brain works, would have the, I would say, the courage to kind of step outside of their lane and say, hey, look, I can only get you so far. I actually work with Simon Smith, and I think you really need to go see him. Because
this is what was really frustrating, because you could say, okay, well, on a personal opinion, and they go, well, I can't really use my personal opinion for that. But even the National Health Service did some studies, and they basically put us against drug care, physiotherapy, and chiropractic. And we beat every outcome on every test. Chiropractic beat all the recovery outcomes.
Would you call yourselves, at that time or even today, I know that you're speaking predominantly chiropractic care. In England, is there a huge emergence of functional medicine?
Very much so.
Is there?
Yeah.
Well, that's great to hear.
Very much so. And it's dragging behind it. I mean, unfortunately, and I feel sorry for physiotherapy practitioners, because they are slightly dictated policy-wise by the government. So I'm seeing people.
So if they step out of line, the government slaps them back in line? Well, or is that too harsh to say?
It's not so much that. There is that, like, you are allowed to give this, or these are the standard exercises. This is how.
Right, here's the test that you have to run.
Yeah,
so are they almost robotic in a way?
A little bit. They're like, oh, we can't do that. So you get, for example, you use me again for an example. I have a right elbow issue. So I go to the general practitioner. My referral comes through. He says, dear Mr. X, please look at Simon Smith's right elbow. He appears to have some arthritis. In the meantime, I've trained. My appointment date comes through, and I say, well, while I'm here, you couldn't look at my left elbow because I've done the same thing to my left elbow. And they say, no, it just says I'm allowed to look at your right elbow here. I have to look at your right elbow. And I go, oh, but my right elbow is fine now, but it's my left elbow that's a problem. Yeah, no, it says right elbow here. And that's where they're constrained. Whereas I'm like, you can come and see me and you go, I've been getting this neck pain, but I got a poorly ankle. Okay.
So you have a more customized pathway. That's because you're in the private
and
world.
I'm allowed to. So, for example, when we were training this morning,
The government's not getting into your business, are they?
Absolutely not. They have no control of this. But for example, I was training with you this morning and I was watching you back squat and I'm like, right, okay. And I didn't get a chance to say it because we moved on, but I'm like, right, I need to have a look at what your arch is doing on your right foot because you're not stable and you're twisting slightly. So I'm allowed to basically use my judgment to go, I am not treating you where you're getting pain. I am treating you where you have a problem, and we always sort of say, wherever the patient says they're in pain, look somewhere else first, whereas the National Health Service is, my job is to treat your pain. Here's a tablet. Okay, but I still have the problem. Yeah, but you can't feel it.
Well, I'll give you an example. I had a great guest on the show a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Amy Beard, and she started practicing medicine as an emergency room physician, right? And her route was a little bit longer than others because she started off as a dietitian, then made the decision to go back to school, became an ER physician, then got to see exactly what you saw in the Atlanta airport on a mass scale, day in and day out. Said, I'm tired of this. Went into direct primary care, which is like care is delivered on a cash basis, but I have a relationship with you. You still have your private insurance. She said, okay, what's this functional medicine? Of course, she was labeled all the things that, you've been labeled along the way. And she's sitting here doing good because ultimately she is going against the system and wanting you to take responsibility for your care.
Yeah.
And now she continues to grow her practice, and she specifically focuses on gut health and all the things that you and I are in tune with. And so I bring her up because it seems kind of like we have similar paths or parallels to the traditional care system that we have here in America, to your all's NHS, come see you from a private. You are there to like, hey, I'm here to customize and curate your care based upon you.
Yeah, exactly.
But are you seeing like a ton of patients a day?
Yeah, I
you are.
Yeah, so I kind of work. We have the clinic setup is that we have rooms that are operated by 2 chiropractors. So we have a morning shift and an afternoon shift. So we can kind of get the early morning.
And you stay full.
Yeah, I'm full. I'm more than full. I'm having to tack people on beginning and end, and that's nice. But we have that aspect where you can. For me, this is the other thing. We talked about what the NHS is constrained by. Well, I don't practice the same way this year that I did last year because medicine has moved on and I keep up to date. And like I go, okay, I used to give this exercise because that was the best thing I knew at the time. But now I've learned this. We're going to work on this now. So, effective, all of those, like, for example, longevity measures where I say, right, okay, the main thing of life is to not die. My job is to make sure, you come to me with pain, but my job is I want you to stay alive longer and not die. So you're going to do some balance work, or can you get up off the floor? No, you can't. Right. We need to do this. So I work with my patients. I basically have my philosophy and how I treat my patients is we are working on your problem, not I am working on your problem. So here is your rehabilitation. This is week 1. Go away, learn this, do it. Right, okay, here's week 2. Go away, learn this, do it. So we're working on a pathway together. And I kind of get, on a journey, a sort of twofold journey of here is what you need to do, and this is why you need to do it. This is how your body works. So I try and educate my patients to sort of say, this is how your machine that is your body works. And I sort of say to people, like effectively, you are basically a system of pulleys, hinges, levers, a couple of hydraulic systems, and a wiring loom with a CPU. You are basically like a Tesla. And effectively, we are going to give you a software update. And that's the thing. So a lot of times, the traditional thing with the physiotherapy is, oh, you have a torn muscle. There's never like, oh, well, you have a torn muscle because you've been moving badly for 30 years. It's like, right, I will treat that torn muscle. Go away. I've done my job now. Whereas I'm very much like, okay, your brain has spent 30 years learning how to move badly. Do you think just massaging that muscle is going to make it start to do things? So I always try and make patients aware of things like an app update. Your app is out of date. You need to do an update on it. And so we're working on the level of your brain, not the level of your muscle. And your muscle will do what your brain tells it. I mean, I used to sort of jokingly say, If I cut your head off, you're basically steak. That's
Right.
those muscles are basically steak.
Well, on that point, because taking ownership of your own health, I mean, it's the greatest wealth we have. We talk about it all the time.
Yeah, health is
and
your wealth.
Health is your wealth. And what you see here in America is that people trade their health for wealth early on, especially within their careers. And then they end up trading that wealth back for their health later on. And so we're in a comfort crisis. We've talked about it a couple of times. You land here in the States in Atlanta and you look at a line of wheelchairs just to get on the plane. You walk. I mean, I tell anybody, go ahead and take 15 minutes when you're in the airport, sit down and people watch. Now, I'm not saying sit on a seat of judgment, but just the facts are the facts. We are a very unhealthy nation, right? And that has to change, and people will not change unless it's due to a pain that's forcing them or pleasure. And my question to you is about the UK and England. Do you see the comfort crisis creeping more and more into society?
It is. There's a kind of a sense of entitlement, I think, now that I don't have to look after myself. And when I can't look after myself, that is
someone else is going to, right?
Yeah. The people don't want to make the hard decisions. And I face that a lot. I have patients who are overweight and are saying, look, we should get you back into the gym. Oh, no, I don't want to do that. I hate sweating. Well, I hate moving. And I said, well, fundamentally, you are an animal. We have the trappings of civilizations, but fundamentally, we are animals, and animals are designed to move. You're familiar with Kelly Starrett's, moving like a leopard type of thing.
I love it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this is the idea that animals in captivity, animals in the wild versus animals in captivity.
Why do you feel those, Simon? You're. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, he's 58. He doesn't look 58. We were at baseball practice last night with a bunch of 12-year-old boys. Simon came. Kudos to him for trying something new.
Yeah.
But the boys loved having him around, and he went to go work, or he went to go over to the first base to start catching some baseballs from the coach for the next drill. And I had a conversation with the boys, and I said, he's 58. And one of the boys looks at me, he's like, he's 58? And it wasn't like, he's 58, like, oh my gosh, that guy's old. He's like, no, he's 58. Like, he looks young. And I say it all the time, especially the organization you and I are involved in that ties us together, as brothers. There's more suffering in men today, and there's more generational weakness that's being created simply because people do not want to do hard things. And whether it's the UK or the US, Simon, why do you feel that is? Why do you feel that there's an avoidance? It's like you avoid pain, it creates more pain.
Yeah.
Like you want to manifest these weak times in your own life. A weak time is looking like, and I don't know how it is in the UK with your food, or do y'all have big gulps like we do? It's just, the stuff's crazy here. And you've noticed that, and we talked about that. But I'd love your opinion on why people, more than ever, even though you said entitlement, or like, you're just like, go walk and touch the stop sign. That will do you good, because movement's your medicine, and you will eventually rust out if you don't continue to move.
I think
it drives me insane. It really does.
Yeah, I think we've sort of had that thing where technology has improved and improved and improved, and it's like we have created all of these things to make your life easier. And now there's that expectation that if it's still not easy enough, you should invent me something else to make it even easier. That I do think that. And then this element of the societal norms of working class, middle class, upper class. I think there was this whole aspirational thing in the 1950s and 60s that we should be moving up our social order. And effectively, it was always like industrialization was the working class. You are the worker drones that make the country run.
Right.
But you should aspire to be more. So when we were getting the trappings of success, we really adopted them, and then we took it to heart, and everything became easier and denser calories. We weren't moving, and also,
is there a lot of processed food in England?
Not as much as here. But yeah, there is
nuts here. Like,
I mean, we don't
stay away from the middle aisles in our grocery stores.
I always say the same thing. But we don't have the same level of takeaway food. I mean, we have takeaway food and things like that. You're
talking about fast food.
Fast food and stuff.
So like we drove here, and I looked. I looked at the number of fast food restaurants,
Yeah.
and I counted over 10 before we even got to this studio.
Yeah, and we
Hell,
don't have
there's
that.
one right in front of the studio.
Yeah, we don't
It's
have
a
it to
fried
that
chicken
level yet.
restaurant.
Yeah, so you'll have your chain-based things like McDonald's, Burger King, etc. Those kinds of things.
Does the government have any say in what goes into the food, or like
Yeah,
you
certain
can't use
things-
certain oils to
yeah,
cook in?
Yeah, they've changed all that. They've tightened
That's
a lot of
great.
that up. But for example, we have Slurpee machines in our 7-Eleven type things, but we don't have like soda fountain unlimited refills and things like this. So there isn't the cultural norm of, okay, I finished this soda.
Our portion size is smaller.
Portion sizes are smaller. We don't, supersize. You don't see big gulpy type things. You just don't. However, the funny thing is that you have some takeaway things, and that's fine. But a lot of them are kind of more geared around, okay, it's 11 p.m. and you've been to the pub, and I'm just going to kind of get a pizza or a curry or a kebab type of thing, that kind of. So there's more of those. There are quite a few of those very low class type of things, but not as many, for example, the Olive Garden-y, et cetera, type of things. We don't have as many of those particularly. There's a lot more independent restaurants. So I guess you could say that there's a lot of very low quality type of things.
So your food hasn't been contaminated to the point of where the American food has been.
Exactly. Yeah. This is the nice thing about the government is that they have good things like the food standards agencies and things like that. They're very, very good with food quality. So a lot of legislation around that. And this idea of, well, should we say?
I don't know what the statistics look like. I'd be curious on what England's chronic diseases compared to America's chronic diseases look like.
I would say it's lower, but
like the Four Horsemen.
Yeah. But
that Peter Attia writes about.
Yeah, I know, but we're getting there. We're getting there. It started to crop up.
Well, over the 30 years in business, Simon, what was the number one lesson you've learned? Because this is a proud moment in your career, is that you are kind of entering the next season of life, right? So what was the number one lesson that you've learned in business, especially the business that you're in England? And number two, what's next for Simon?
Okay. Well, for me is that you're always learning. That, and so if I'm a good chiropractor, then I need to be a good businessman as well. So I've always spent my life learning. And my driving passion has always been, how can I serve my patients better? But I would say, how can I help people more? The gift I have is that I can acquire knowledge and I can apply that knowledge. And I would say that's the big factor for me, is that I've always thought, if I've ever had a patient I can't fix, it bugs me. It drives me mad. And so I'm like, right. And it becomes me against the condition. I'm like, right, I will not let you win. I am going to solve this problem. And so I've always hunted down stuff. So I've always been able to give patients up-to-date medical advice. And over the years, so it's that sort of idea of like, I'm fixing your back, but that you could help with your cholesterol using this. Because you get patients in on chronic medications. And I was like, well, doing, bicep curls will keep you off metformin for diabetes. That doing this will help this. Do something yourself. You give people, I can lead the horse to the water, but they've got to drink it themselves.
In England, and you said it earlier, are the general practitioners just dishing out pills left and right?
Yeah.
They are.
There's a lot of standardization, because again, they've done studies going, right, okay, if you are on a statin, you have less chance of a stroke. Oh, but could I go and exercise? Well, that's not really for me to say, is it? But here's the pill. Because it's a simple solution. Just take this pill for the rest of your life and we will reduce your stroke risk. But then you have an educated patient go, yes, but surely I need some cholesterol in my body to repair. Yes, but you don't want to have a stroke. And they're like, well, what are my odds on getting a stroke? And this playing with percentages, that you have a 1% chance of a stroke. Okay, well, it's gone up by 100%. Well, you still only have a 2% chance of a stroke. But for them, it's like, but it's 100% greater. There's a manipulation of statistics. So
are the physicians getting paid by pharmaceutical companies?
No, there is that element that they are courted quite well. They are courted to suggest, so they don't get a kickback, but they do get like lots of conferences and things like that.
I gotcha.
But it's not something I know about, so I probably shouldn't go into detail on that, because I might.
That's fine. I mean, I was curious, like over 30 years though, the lesson. That's a question I always ask.
But there's a lot of medical reps out there. But for me, in terms of the business, I've I've always sort of thought, right, okay, how can I do my job better? And how can I be better? So and this is going to sound very politically incorrect, but when I'm sort of kind of joking around, I always sort of say, how can you trust a fat doctor, or how can you trust a fat chiropractor?
It's not a politically incorrect statement. Why would you go to a dentist with bad teeth?
Yeah, because if I basically sort of
we talked about that with the police force.
Exactly. I sort of say to my patients, I will never give you an exercise I haven't done myself. Because every time there's something new on the horizon, like we say functional medicine, stability medicine, all of these kind of things of rehabilitation, I have taught myself using my own body, and I've road tested every single exercise I do. And like you say, I'm proud to say that I'm 58 and I've kind of like an 8%.
You look great. Yeah, you look great.
My muscle mass, because effectively there's an element.
I don't know very many 58-year-olds that look like you.
And I sort of say, look,
50, you're 58 years young. And just to reframe that.
But the thing is, I get is like, well, you're lucky. I'm going, no, I'm not lucky. I made a decision years ago to have a habit of going to the gym. It's just a habit, but it's a big started with a decision. And so I look at myself now and go, wow, this is really good. But it's based on every decision, every day, the decision I took every day to go to the gym. So on a Tuesday, and I made a decision that I was going to go to the gym. And on a Wednesday, I made a decision and I was going to the gym. And all of those small decisions add up to a big change. And you get the people go, oh, it's too late for me to start now. And I say, well, no, you have to start somewhere. And if you start somewhere, you'll get somewhere. But if you don't start at all, you won't get anywhere. And so I think that was an aspect of saying, right, okay, I will model how this should be. And it frustrates me when I see people who are talking a good game, but not doing it themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you're entering the last chapter of your career. Mm-hmm. You're retiring.
Yeah.
You scared?
No, I'm excited. Because I'm like, right, okay, what can I do next?
But you could, so if you were in England though, and you set up a practice like yours, mm-hmm. you can make a great living. Is that correct?
Yeah. And I could carry on doing chiropractic for another 20 years. I could, but it's time for me now. I kind of want to go traveling.
Sure.
I want to see the world with my wife. I've traveled around the world once, and that's something I tell my children is that, if you want to appreciate your life, go and travel and see other people's lives. And I think that's another appreciation. We've talked about the societies that we live in, and I don't think, this free access to calories, shall we say, we take that for granted here. And actually, when you go to places where...
That's a great way to put it. Free access to calories.
Yeah. And when you look at how people have to struggle and strive, then you're suddenly thinking, yeah, my life isn't so bad. Maybe I should be a little bit more grateful and take a little bit more attention of it. So the plan is that, I want to travel with my wife, but I also kind of want to...
I'm proud of you, man.
Yeah. But I want to coach people. This is the idea. Is like I feel like
coach them how?
Well,
men, women, doesn't matter who it is.
Basically, this idea of being better on all elements. Because I'm like, okay, I can help you. I've spent years helping you with your health, but really, it comes down to drive, to passion, to success. How do I make you more successful?
So how can you make someone more successful? Like I mentor a ton of people, as you know.
Mentor because and it's about. And
I would always learning along the way, because I love leadership, I love mentorship, I love seeing that person have a light bulb moment, an aha moment, or you help them, like, here's your future state, we're going to reverse engineer backwards from it. I always ask that question, like, and this is a good question for you, so we'll just do it with you. All right, R stands for relationship. What kind of relationship do you want to have with Simon Smith 24 months from now? What are the skills, attributes, and the things that are going to bring a smile to your face?
So
that kind of gets into coaching a little bit.
And this, for me, very clear, this aspect of being in control of my life, being able to sort of set my day, being able to be in contact and communication with people that I am utilizing the lifetime of lessons that I've learned. So it's effectively helping people shortcut their success by...
Take the road less stupid?
Take the road less stupid. Yeah, it's a good expression. This idea of saying, okay, I am doing this, and for me, what I'm good at is doing hard things. You and I both do hard things.
Yes, we do. And in fact, someone interviewed me 2 weeks ago for Arkansas Money in Politics, and the last question was, what one piece of advice would you give to an up-and-coming entrepreneur, leader, go-getter? And I said, do hard things.
Yeah.
Like put yourself in situations that require you to consistently grow. Find a proximity that produces great power inside of you. If you're the best in that room, find a new room, all the sayings that are out there. And the one thing I'd say, Simon, is like, we're never looking, me or you. This is why we're close friends. And if you ever needed me in England, I'd be there like that.
Ditto.
Vice versa. But we're never actually saying, hey, Simon, you're responsible for my results. And I think today more than ever, right? Like my why God put me on this earth is to end men's suffering and generational weakness, right? But what I've learned along the way from a coaching, because health to me is the ultimate catalyst. It's the ultimate foundation. It's what develops resilience in a lot of ways.
And it's one thing you can control.
But you said it earlier too. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink, right? But it fuels your tank when you're able to coach those that have a great hunger emotion or humble enough to receive coaching.
This is it. I mean, I'm renowned in my clinic. My patients come in and say, "Well, what crazy?"
You've got such a brand now.
Yeah, but people come in and say, "What crazy thing you're about to do now?"
Oh yeah, that's how I'm known.
And it's like that's the thing. I mean, I always sort of joke that I sort of say, "Okay, I'm gonna train outside on the street and do bear crawls, for example, and it's just an okay day." All right, fine. Then it's like, "Oh, it's pouring down with rain. Great. Oh, it's snowing. Ah, fantastic. The worse it gets,
the story we build.
Yeah. The more we love it. Yeah. The more I love it. It's like, okay, I'll go for a run. Oh, it's snowing. Great. It's 6 inches of snow. That's going to be a fantastic run, because it's that aspect that you're going, yeah, I did that and I got something out of it. I rewarded myself. I never take the easy route. It's always that sort of thing of like, what will I learn doing that? And that's what I want to pass on. And this idea of taking people along the journey. So what I want to do is, I guess you could say, is if I'm going to earn money, I want to earn it doing the things I love rather than things I have to do. So it's that idea of like, oh, you want to become a better leader, better businessman? Well, I'm basically going to take you on this challenge. And like, should we say, for example,
we'll go to Sparta.
To go to Sparta next year. Or domestically in England, say, right, okay, we're going to walk the peaks of the Lake District.
What you're talking to me about.
Yeah. And we're going to, and we're not just going to do it, but we're going to do it as fast as we can. And
we're going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to find another level.
Yeah, and we're going to carry this log when we go. And that's how you're going to learn something about yourself, because you're going to want to quit, and I'm not going to let you quit. And then when you've done that, then when you have a deadline, you're not going to quit. When you I both have the same expression. My standard expression is, there is always one more thing I can do. Standard Navy SEAL sort of expression, training. There is always something, don't panic. However bad it is, there is always...
Just focus on the 3 feet in front of you.
There's something you can do to make the situation better. Like here. I mean, my journey to you this week has not been easy. I set off on Monday, intending to arrive here Monday night. I didn't arrive here until Tuesday night because my flight left late and I missed my connection. So I spent today in Holland in a hotel, being bored ostensibly, but what did I do with it? I kind of wandered around. I found the outdoor training area, things like that. I used my time, and it took me an extra 24 hours to get here. Did I bitch and moan about it? No, it's what it was. You accept, you move on. Yeah.
But you're here. All right. So as we come to a close, I always have one big question, and it's the same question. If you were in a different part of the world and you were serving on a mission trip, right? And it's in a third world country, since we're talking about traveling the world, you're there serving, doing great things. However, the police come and arrest you. They think you're a spy. You're put into prison, a jail, the local jail. There's only one single light. The inmates are extremely loud. It's chaotic. It's crazy. And they say, okay, you get one call, and that's it. If they don't answer, it doesn't matter. We're not giving you another call. Who would that call be to, and why?
I think it's the why. I'll deal with the why first. And it's that sort of thing that you would say, right, I have 30 seconds to talk to you. This is where I am. I need help. And you would have to, and you would basically have to say, you figure out the how. Where I am, I can't figure out the how. I need you to get me out, and you need to do whatever you need to do to get me out, and you need to assess the resources. It would have to be one of my brothers and some. So I'd probably say you, because I know that if I asked you to do it, it would get done. It would get done.
The amount of, do you know my number?
Yeah. And there are very few people.
Did you catch that? Do you know my cell phone number?
Yeah, we got the 501, it's, and then just five. I do kind of know it, but
and that's why also it's a two-part question
I
that
do-
I always
I
ask.
do-
I
I-
didn't come up with this question.
I
This
do
is a
know
question
it,
that's
but I've got
used
I've got
a
the numbers
lot.
wrong. Yeah, I was listening to you say it last night.
Yeah,
but
it's used a lot. But I love it because what it does is it centers you on who has the most agency in
It's
your
agency,
life.
yeah.
It's agency,
Yeah.
right? And then the second thing is we don't know numbers anymore outside of a select
Yeah.
few where, growing up, you had to know people's numbers. But no, I can promise you this, if that did ever happen,
Yeah.
you get caught up in a
And
mess,
likewise.
call me, but know my number.
Yeah.
I can put together a hell of a task force and
Well,
we would
this is
come
the-
get you.
It's like because you don't.
I have some guys that would love that, by the way.
I don't.
So,
you don't.
You know these guys.
Yeah, you don't know how. You don't have to know how to do every step of the way. You just have to know the person that can know every
That's
step of the way.
exactly right. The
And
one that
that's
has the
the-
most agency that will
Yeah.
not freak out in the moment.
Yeah, and I sort of say, if you sort of, I'm back home and you sort of say, actually, I'm really struggling with the things that are going on in my life at the moment. I kind of need you by my side. I'd say, right, okay, I need to clear my decks. I've got to get out. I've got over there. And you know that there'd be never any recourse to it. It would just be like, there's no expectation. Well, I've done this for you now, but that's quid pro quo. It's like, you need me. Well, it's going to take me 3 days to get there, but I'll get there, sort of thing. What else do you need? And there's just that aspect of like, you can rely on me because you're my teammate. However, the caveat of that is because we've been through the trenches, and I'm really actually not going to talk about that because I'm kind of, my emotional levels kind of at the bottom of my eyelids here, but you know who I'm talking about. Yeah, you got him. So we've been through something that has bonded us forever. I hope I'm not ruining this for you.
Oh, this is what this is for.
Yeah. And so,
Simon, you're a brother of mine.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way. Alex knows this. I don't invite everybody into this studio.
Yeah.
Right. And we're not going to talk about, what you're tearing up about. Just know that I firmly believe that we were all brought together for a reason in that moment.
And so in that moment,
it changed our life forever.
Yeah.
It did. It changed our life forever. And I'll end on this, and I'm just going to speak directly to your heart. I love you more than you'd ever know, right? And regardless if you're across the pond, I would come and take care of business if you needed anything from me. That's how much you mean to me. The amount of passion, the amount of love you bring to this world, you telling me you having conversations with Tink, mutual brother in School of Man, every week as he was going through his cancer journey. That speaks volumes into who you are, man. Like, you have had a tremendous impact on my life and so many others. And I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. I'm so glad that you're here. I'm grateful that we've been able to have this conversation today.
I've loved this. This has been awesome.
Isn't it pretty cool?
Yeah,
right.
I've
So
loved it.
we'll bury each other.
Yeah.
And then that's just again, that's the greatest motivation out there is mortality. And I wish people had more. I wish people would have more self-awareness in today's world of like, hey, this life of ours, it doesn't last forever. Mortality is the greatest motivation. But I just want to tell you, man, I love you, brother to brother. This has been awesome. We'll do it again. I promise that.
Thank you so much, because this is, this has been meant so much to me. I've been waiting to get down and talk to you like this for years, because I think you and I you're right. You mean that world to me as well. There is just no one else. Yeah. Well, I have 2 more brothers now from my experiences and so on. But really, if it came down to it, this is like, right, I need you. Can you come?
We're going to make it happen.
And that sort of thing. And then just get your ass over to England and I can show you around now. Yeah.
Oh, it's going to happen. Yeah. Trust me. It's going to happen. And I just want to throw this in for everybody. I kicked his ass this morning.
Only a little. And I am 20 years older than him, I say.
Don't use that as an excuse. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.